Warning, this episode contains some gory bits which are definitely not suitable for younger viewers. Also, maybe some spoilers.
Son of a glitch.
Resident Evil 2 Remake. It feels like it's 1998 again and Resident Evil 2 is back, only this time it's darker and more scary, and it's got a couple of glitches, kinda takes the edge off. Because nothing lightens the mood like a zombie just walking in midair. I mean, this is maybe normal to zombies, I don't know. So why don't we kick things off by looking at some random glitches that do happen with zombies, like this poor unfortunate lady zombie cop who I shot, and she kind of had the worst case of phantom limb I've ever seen, as she kind of still walked while her legs were clearly on the floor. She didn't have the legs for it. Thank you, you've got me for the next 20 minutes. Or how about these crazy zombies who are snacking on another zombie and just have to take that zombie friend wherever they go? Gosh darn it, come on Rob, let's get out of here, this lady's shooting at us again. Some of my personal favorite little glitches in the game are when you kill a zombie and they're on the ground and they're supposed to be dead, yet again, and they're kind of still flopping around. Like this one who's now a DJ. How about this licker who's kind of just like, please, no more. I'll stop being mean, I promise. Meanwhile, I don't know what this guy's up to. Maybe some kind of new dance craze the kids are all into? Maybe he really wants something in that top corner, just not able to just about reach it. It's just one licker. I mean, I could handle that, right? Huh. Yeah, that changes things. Every now and again, you might come across something really weird with a zombie like Leon does here in this clip from Axel 2 Red, where a zombie is just really freaking out in a corner due to some kind of crazy physics glitch, which really doesn't figure itself out until you get really close, and then the game decides, oh yeah, the zombie shouldn't be doing this. Speaking of physics, how about when a zombie just completely defies the laws of physics and does stuff like this? Or how about this exact same zombie doing whatever this is? I gotta be honest, I don't even think he knows what he's doing. Oh, now he's grabbed the leg. Now we are under the ground. It's, this is just nothing to see here. Everyday, normal zombie things. If somebody could just explain this to me, zombie, what are you doing? What are you actually doing right now? Here's something that's really dumb that I noticed. When you go to blow up the C4, head to this bookshelf just covering the door to the library, and then wait for the bomb to go off. What's supposed to happen is the force from the explosion knocks over the bookshelf, but if we stand in the way of it, that won't happen. So you can stand here like 10 seconds long after the explosion, and then simply move out the way, and then the bookshelf will fall over. Physics! Hey, did you guys know that Ada Wong can walk through doors? Nope, I'm not kidding. Here's the evidence. She must have just realized that chivalry really was dead and she just decided to walk straight through the door. Also, did you know that Ada Wong is very good at moonwalking? Again, I'm not kidding. Here's Exhibit A. Now, this glitch is really strange. I tried again and again to get it to trigger and it just wouldn't happen. It seems for this one time in a very rare glitch, Ada kind of gets knocked off course or out of alignment and she runs into this post and then the game tells her to move backwards for some reason. She moonwalks all the way back into the parking lot and then she kind of figures out, oh, I done goofed. The game then finally decides to put her back on course and then she begins walking up the ramp, and then when she reaches the top of the ramp, she disappears. And that's when the game decides to completely crash. Seems like the game really didn't know what to do with any of this and just said nope. Again, I must have tried countless times to push Ada off course so this glitch would trigger and it just wouldn't happen for me. So not entirely sure what's going on there. So we've discussed some random glitches that happen, but here's the major glitch of Resident Evil 2 Remake, and that is the Airwalk. Setting this up can be kind of fiddly, but basically what you want to do is have a zombie that's crawling along the ground grab your leg at the top of some stairs. I find the easiest way to do this is to shoot a zombie in the leg so it falls off and now it's crawling along the ground. Then get behind the zombie and kind of follow it and steer it to the top of some stairs. When it's in about this position, simply start walking forward and hopefully the zombie will grab your leg to the point where you're actually kind of floating in the air already, and this is the beginning of the Airwalk. Predominantly, this glitch is performed in the library section of the police department purely because it has this rail on the right side of the stairs. One thing to note about the airwalking glitch is that walking along rails with elevated heights can change the height of your actual airwalk, so you can use this to adjust your height in the air. This also means that certain objects in the world can affect your height as well. For instance, being just above a table or a barrel or an object of that sort means that gravity will actually place you on top of that object, but you will maintain your airwalk. It's a very simple glitch, but it's kind of tricky to pull off, but now we know how to airwalk, well, how do we use it? Well, in the library is this section of floor that actually collapses if you walk on top of it. And the cool thing about this is it's actually a scripted animation that has set height values for where you start and where you finish, provided you trigger this animation somewhere within this small area, such as just above it or conveniently just below it, meaning that if we airwalk just under it, this animation will actually push us under the map. And this ability to get under the map opens up the whole game to a bunch of skips and glitches. The first notable skip we should talk about is the Medallion Skip. As soon as you've been taken under the floor and out of bounds, the next thing you want to do is head round to this side of the police department and to these stairs. Walking underneath some stairs acts exactly the same as walking on the top of rails in the sense that it adjusts your height and actually brings you down to the main floor. Now that we're at this level, what we can do is walk around to this side and wait for a wall to load in, and then we walk adjacent to that wall to these set of metal pipes. And then as we take a right, we'll be pushed down onto the floor just a tad more, and then we can make our way around to this side, which is actually the outside of the boiler room where in a casual playthrough you would usually find the club key. Now the strange thing about this, and probably the only instance of being able to do this that I've seen in the game, is you're actually able to grab the club key from outside this wall. And once you grab the club key, what you then want to do is head through this tree and through this wall, and the rest of the police department will actually load back in. And what you'll see now is that we're situated just above the room that's hidden behind the medallion statue, and you'll see that we're now actually able to get inside this room without having collected any of the medallions and skipping a significant portion of the police department. From here you can go on to fight the first iteration of Birkin, and then basically carry on the game as normal. The second most notable skip in the RPD involves Claire. Performing the airwalk in the library once again and getting pushed underground so you're out of bounds, we once again need to head to this small room that's on the other side of where the medallion statue takes you, and you'll find that this wall here can push you down slightly, and then moving to the right you'll find that the stairs can also adjust your height further. We need to go all the way down to the bottom step and then turn around and head away from the police department in this general direction. What will happen is eventually the parking lot in the lower level will actually load in and unload the rest of the police department. And from here we can actually make our way underneath Raccoon City to head towards the general direction of the sewers. The best way to get a lock on where we need to go is to look at this lamppost and basically just follow it down to a T, and eventually once you get close to it, a set of stairs leading down towards the sewer will suddenly load in, and once again we'll be using the rails of these stairs to elevate our height. We basically want to walk along the rail until there's nowhere else to go and then just take a right. Now walking through this building, we'll be navigating our way all the way to the Orphanage, which is just a couple of buildings away really. I mean, I've heard of the scenic route, but this is something else. You want to be heading in the direction of these two bright spotlights that are just where the Orphanage entrance is. And you also have to kind of make sure that you don't accidentally wander in bounds where you don't want to be. Eventually you'll arrive at all these vehicles that are kind of situated outside the Orphanage, and there's one particular car that we can actually use to get our height lowered so we're back on regular ground, and then we can simply just walk to the entrance of the Orphanage. Now this really is a huge skip, because if you do it the minute you enter the library for the first time, you'll actually skip like 90% of the RPD section of the game. But those two aren't the only big skips in the game. The final big skip of the game happens in the sewers. At these set of stairs, if you once again perform the airwalk by luring this zombie to the top of the stairs and hopefully having him bite your leg so you activate the airwalk, you can then use the right side of these stairs to once again elevate your height, and then you can simply walk out of this wall, and now you're completely out of bounds in the sewer area. From here, you can literally walk around the entire sewer area to where the cable car lives, which really isn't that far, and conveniently you're exactly the same height as the cable car, so you can walk in through the roof, you walk to the back of the cable car, which is just the right height for the game to actually place you back on solid ground, and then it's basically business as usual as you activate the lever for the cable car and the cutscene initiates, and off you go down to the Umbrella Labs. Now these are three really useful skips in the game using the airwalk, but we can also mess with the game in so many different ways it's unbelievable. For instance, that that sewer skip that I just showed off has some pretty hilarious side effects. The game fully intends you to have Sherry with you when you enter the cable car, as that's really your only way in. So when you do it by basically glitching your way in there, it's gonna mess with the game slightly. The cutscene showing Sherry and Claire going down towards the labs plays out absolutely normal. However, once it's finished, you'll be greeted by T-posing Sherry asserting her dominance for all to see. Or if you skip that cutscene, usually Sherry will just end up in a pile on the floor, and you really can't interact with her or do anything. It's kind of weird. Or in this third clip from Congo Balls, we can see there's yet a third variety of this glitch, which is the funniest of the bunch. Somehow the cutscene for first entering the cable car is shown and then skipped, and then for some reason you have two Sherrys. One that Claire is awkwardly holding, or not holding as the case may be, and then one Sherry is just stuck standing inside the bench. Now I must have tried a dozen different ways of trying to trigger this glitch that I could think of, and just nothing would do it. It's a really random side effect of skipping to the cable car, and it doesn't happen every single time, or even really at all. It's that rare. But what obviously seems to be happening here is the game thinks Claire is simultaneously holding Sherry and also not holding Sherry, which explains the awkwardness. And this glitch also extends to when you finally get off the cable car and arrive at the underground labs. So what you end up with is Claire carrying absolutely nothing, Sherry being carried but not by Claire and stuck in the same spot and jiggling around, and then this Sherry's just kind of standing there like, I don't understand any of this, like, why am I here? I gotta say, I think my favorite part of this glitch is Claire's run cycle while she's supposed to be holding Sherry but isn't. Makes her kind of look like she's trying to dry her nails when she's in a hurry. Like, there's no way I can see her doing anything else but that. Like, seriously, could these nails dry any quicker, please? And then when you finally get Sherry to the bed, she just kind of stands there. Yeah, I don't really think that's how you do that. Oh yeah, and anytime you go back to Sherry, she kind of just warps to you. We'll get to some more examples of how the Airwalk can actually break the game in really funny ways, but while we're still talking about Sherry, here's a really funny glitch that happens in her section of the game. During the part of the game where the chief is trying to catch Sherry in the orphanage, there's a really funny glitch you can actually trigger if you stand at about this spot here and then wait for him to be like, ah, it burns! And then he'll make his way to the bathroom and you want to get in his way and then keep mashing the crouch button. And what will happen is the animation for being caught by the chief plays out, but you don't actually get caught and you still have full control. So when the short cutscene of him in the bathroom ends, you end up with this. That's right, the chief completely bugs out and tries to catch you but is unable to, and I mean, honestly, look at this, it's insane. And the award for the dumbest looking glitch in the entire game goes to this one. Okay, let's move on from this before it completely melts my brain and go back to the Airwalk stuff. Now, when you skip stuff within the police department section of the game, there's a lot of events or cutscenes that still kind of exist, and they kind of hang around until the new cutscenes are loaded in, so it's not uncommon to have two of the same kind of character still lying around. A great example of this is I still had Marvin loaded in as the human, non-zombified version of Marvin, and I also had the zombie Marvin in the same scene. Marvin, I hope you don't mind, but in the future I kill you. I hope you're okay with that. We cool? For experiment's sake, I also decided to use the Airwalk glitch to get out of bounds and make my way all the way around to the other side of where the helicopter crash happens. Now, the game never intends you to be here without actually triggering the helicopter crash, so we can now see what this wall looks like without the helicopter inside it. And it seems whoever built the police station forgot to put in an extra window. Now, even though we didn't actually trigger the animation for the helicopter crashing into the police department, the cutscene where Claire meets up with Leon once again can still be activated. But after that cutscene actually plays out, the helicopter is now the wrong way round inside the building as it's on fire, and also there are huge gaping holes in the walls. And here's the funniest thing, if you go back into the corridor where the helicopter crash is actually triggered, the animation for the crash will now play out as normal and the helicopter will just be flipped around the right way. Interestingly enough, we can use airwalking to skip the helicopter crash completely. And in doing that, what we'll actually come across is the helicopter pilot just T-posing in the area where the helicopter crash happens. Once again, the game always intends you to actually see the helicopter crash, and it stores the helicopter pilot's model in the same general area. Because in a normal playthrough, by now you would have seen the helicopter crash, and you would never have just come across the helicopter pilot just chilling out over here. Another really funny, unintentional side effect of me skipping the helicopter helicopter crash entirely meant much later in the game, when I'd completely forgotten I'd even done that, I saw something in the corner of my eye and I was like, what is that? Well, it was the helicopter pilot just T-posing in the air. And this is because fundamentally all the areas of the game share the same space, just loaded in at different times. Some other crazy things you can do with being able to get out of bounds using the Airwalk is to change Leon into Claire. This can be done by playing as Leon, pulling off the Airwalk and going out of bounds, and then following the exact same steps you used to get Claire to the Orphanage early. However, the only difference is when you reach the area with the cars just outside the Orphanage, you want to go to this kind of window area and then kind of walk Leon underneath it, and eventually he'll be pushed down to the normal ground level. We can now go through these cars still out of bounds and then approach the wall just outside the Orphanage, and what we'll find here is an item prompt to pick something up. And here's the strange bit, the game will now assume that Leon has now turned into Claire. And this is for the simple fact that Leon doesn't come to this part of the game, so you must be playing as Claire, right? Now remaining out of bounds, we can backtrack all the way to the police department underground parking lot, and here's where things are about to get pretty weird. If we walk into the parking lot and then turn around, what will happen is the shutter to the parking lot will respawn in as normal. If we then walk over to the ticket machine and try to use it, the cutscene where Leon first meets Ada will play out, only this time Claire will now be awkwardly placed inside Leon, as the game doesn't really know what to do. It's like, you're playing as Claire, you're playing as Leon. This cutscene is weird. Claire then proceeds to just awkwardly hang out in the background of this scene while things are happening. And then after the cutscene is played out and finished, you'll be back to playing as Claire again. I'm so confused. This can be done for the next set of cutscenes where you once again see Ada and Claire is just really in the way this time, where Ada just walks straight through her. It's a shame you can't go through the whole game like this, because actually doing this glitch removes any weaponry you would usually have, and you really can't progress any further than this cutscene, really. Have I ever mentioned that I love the fact that most modern games have cutscenes that are in real time and this stuff can happen? Some other side effects of using airwalking to skip things can also affect one of the biggest parts of this game, and that would be Mr.X. I started using airwalking for things like getting outside the area where Mr.X spawns and then lifts up the helicopter, and now I could be outside looking in, and Mr.X is just kind of standing there waiting for me to come down this corridor and scare me, but nope, not gonna let you do it. You can even get back inside the building and stand right next to Mr.X while he's kind of waiting to do his animation, but you're in the wrong place to trigger it, and he ain't gonna do nothing. Funnily enough, if you're playing as Claire and you carry on the game as normal from here without actually triggering the animation where Mr.X lifts up the helicopter, you won't see this guy until the Orphanage. Leon, unfortunately, well, he's not that lucky. But one thing you can do with Leon is if you skip him lifting up the helicopter, but instead have him triggered much later in the game and then come back to this spot, the animation for him lifting the helicopter is still actually active, so the helicopter will basically lift itself. Another thing I noticed that was really weird is at one point I found Mr.X kind of wandering around when I hadn't actually triggered his animation with the helicopter, but I saw this in the window and I was like, that's Mr.X. He's easily the tallest thing in the game. What is he doing here? So I go outside this door and then suddenly Mr.X kind of just freezes, as if to say like, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm not supposed to be here, am I? Ah, that's cute, he's trying not to be noticed. Generally, Mr.X can be quite a terrifying character. I mean, well, not right here. You're stuck, aren't you? Yeah, okay. But generally speaking, pretty scary. Well, what if there were two of him? Well, to activate this terrifying glitch, what you need to do is start playing as Leon in a second run. Play through the game completely normally until you reach the spade key on this desk. Once you pick this up, what you then need to do is perform the airwalk glitch in the library as usual, and then get pushed underneath the map. You then follow the same steps you used to get Claire to the orphanage early by using these steps to lower Leon's height. Then turn around and have Leon run in this direction until the police department disappears and the parking lot below loads in. We then need to walk Leon onto this ramp so he's firmly back on solid ground again, and then walk back into the parking lot. We then need to spawn in the shutter and then try using the ticket machine, which activates the Ada cutscene, and then from there we can play the game as normal until we receive the crank. Once you have this tool, carry on playing the game completely normally until you make it back upstairs to the police department and then onto the second floor. We need to use the round handle in the shower room and make your way through there till you reach the corridor where you would originally find the liquor. However, in Leon's second run, this is where we can find Mr.X, and so this will be our first Mr.X. We're now going to have this Mr.X follow us to where the other Mr.X should spawn in, and that's the one that lifts up the helicopter. And because we have the crank, we can easily reach that area where the helicopter's on fire and we have to put it out. So we put the fire out, we go through the door, and then we meet another Mr.X. Now what will happen is the other Mr.X that we first encountered will now be following us up here, so essentially we now have two Mr. Mr.X is following us. And yes, it's every bit as terrifying as you'd expect, and I wouldn't recommend doing this on hardcore mode. And of course, I was crazy enough to try and figure out ways of trying to get 3 Mr.X's legitimately, but the way the game's put together just makes it impossible to even get this to happen. So unfortunately, X ain't gonna give it to you times 3. I'll definitely settle for 2 though, that's terrifying enough. Okay, let's wrap this episode up with one last glitch that seems to have happened completely randomly. In this clip from Bad Gamers, we can see that somehow the background hasn't actually loaded into the ending of the game. Spoiler alert. And it now looks like Leon, Claire, and Sherry are just walking on, well, nothing. And in fact, at the very end of the game, it looks like they all died and basically went to heaven. Not entirely sure how this truck gets there, but maybe it's best not to think about it. But there you have it, guys. Those were some of the craziest glitches in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Hey guys, Andy here, and if you've made it to this point in the video, thanks very much for watching. I really hope you had fun and some laughs, but now I'm going to promote some things to you. Live streaming. I'm going to be live streaming more regularly now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Here's a list of times for your time zones, and I really hope to see you guys in the live streams. Secondly, Twitter. If you're on Twitter, follow me at A+Start Show. I post updates and news about episodes, and it's just a really good way to keep up with the show in general. So I really want to hit 50,000 followers by the end of this year, and I think a channel of this size, we can definitely do that. So hopefully you guys will follow me at A+Start Show on Twitter, and that's pretty much it. Let me see, live streaming, Twitter. Yeah, we're good. I'll see you guys in the next episode. And if you like this episode, why not check out the other episodes from the series? There's a handy little playlist right there. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and as always, a huge thanks to everybody who supports the Patreon. You guys are the ones that make it happen.